From Unity of Houston, Texas, this is the Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational spiritual community providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress now with Reverend Howard Caesar.
Every week we come together and every week we say and affirm the same statement. And that statement is there is one presence and there is one power in this church, in our lives, and in the universe, God the good, omnipotent. Omnipotent meaning all-powerful. Also we could add omniscient, meaning everywhere present. One presence, one power, God the good, everywhere present, all-powerful. And so the question is, do you really believe that? And when you say it, do you really engage with that knowingness and almost go to your heart with a great sense of gratitude that that is the truth and that is the God that you know and you're seeking to come to know more deeply and completely. And so if you really do believe that, then it would be appropriate that we are taking steps necessary to accessing and drawing on that power and that presence all the more. Would it not make sense to do that, correct? The one presence in all the universe, and its nature is good. And what are we doing to access a deepening relationship with it? And so we have been taught and we have been told again and again that the most effective and most powerful way to draw upon this power is through prayer. So prayer is a word that's not new to any of us, but we're all at different levels in that process of approaching God, engaging with God, communicating with God, in conversing with God, talking to God, that whole dynamic. And some people are a little fuzzy and hazy on it. Some people are really able to get into it. Some have and are still learning. We're all in the process really of going deeper and deeper in our relationship of communion and union with the divine. That's part of our path. That's part of our journey. And so all of us have some extent of prayer life, I hope. And it's very, very important. Every religion on the face of the earth that has always taught all through the ages a form of prayer, a form of connecting with that which is known to be the source, their God. All right? Now those approaches may be different and vary a little bit in technique or approach, but ultimately they all teach an engaging with, a connecting with that presence and power. It's very, very important. Now, each of us vary in our current awareness, in our current level of spiritual consciousness. We vary in the level of unfoldment and progression and evolution just because we do. We have different pasts, different histories, different lifetimes, different many factors that all come together and place us in different levels of or places in our unfoldment. And there is also a varying variation of where we can be on our prayer path as well. And a more developed prayer life will foster for anyone a transformational process and spiritual growth. In other words, just as you have a powerful relationship with a person, another human being, that loves you unconditionally, that totally accepts you, that you feel comfortable with at any time, will listen to you, never judge you, that there is something powerful in that energy and a great deal of help that comes from that individual. That's a relationship that you can have with God. And know that God is actually moving through that person energetically to be that, to carry out the qualities and the attributes that the divine actually is. So you understand that God is all around you. God is in the people around you. God is in animals, vegetation, life, as one intelligence. It's all God. And at the same time, you can have a very personal, one-on-one relationship with the divine when you go ye apart alone and close the closet door or whatever that door is and just engage at a deep, sacred level with a sense of reverence. But the more that we learn to do that, the deeper we go in that relationship, like any other relationship, the more we're conversing, the more we're communicating. Communication is creation. And communication is the currency, really, of the universe and the currency with God. And so it begins there. Jesus said that he was the light of the world, and he said that we were the light of the world also, and that therefore we are to let our light shine and not allow all the circumstances and the challenges that we encounter in this three-dimensional physical world to cover over the light that we are, and to move beyond that. And that's a process that we're about, not hiding our light. And through prayer, you continually engage with that which is the truth, okay? And the more you engage with the truth, the more you are set free. That's the process. And so in prayer, it keeps us connected to this power and to this light, if you will. And prayer is essential to each of us as a soul, just as blood is essential to the body to have life. It was the Apostle Paul, if you recall, that went from no prayer and no engaging with a God to having a conversion in which he awakened to a truth and a realization of a presence and a power that activated in him in such a way that his message was pray without ceasing. That was his message, pray without ceasing. A big shift from no prayer to, wow, was I missing the boat? And so Jesus also, of course, taught and lived prayer. He apart a while, he went to the mountain, he took disciples with him, and at one time he took Peter and James and John up on the mountain, and they said that his appearance changed, his countenance was altered, his raiment became dazzling white. So that essentially there is a shift and a change even physiologically that takes place in us when we enter into these higher frequencies of source energy. And so the more that we allow ourselves to think in terms of, wow, that source energy is with me all the time, the more that I can engage with it, the more my life changes and is altered, and the more that I become a light in the world. And so Jesus taught us the prayer, Our Father, the Lord's Prayer. And in Luke, there is the start of the chapter, Luke, it talks about a prayer that is coming up in that chapter. And it says that this parable conveys the message that from Jesus, that they were always to pray and not to lose heart. You can go to that passage, I think it's the first verse of the 18th chapter of Luke, and it says that Jesus' message in this parable was that you are always to pray and not to lose heart. Because it's easy to lose heart when we think our prayers aren't answered, or when things are happening in our life and things are going not so well. We can lose heart, and we should never cease praying. I've told you before that when I was in the 8th grade and I was confirmed at my traditional church where I grew up in Wisconsin, and they, on the confirmation certificate that they gave you after going through 2 years of Saturday morning classes for being confirmed, they gave you a certificate that had a memory verse in that certificate. And everyone got a different Bible verse. And the Bible verse that I was given, I really felt just, from the moment I got it, it was like, oh, wow, thank you, God. I love this. And I never forgot it. And it was, ask and it will be given unto you, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open to you. And so that my life then has continued to be one about asking and seeking and knocking at every door I can to better understand myself, better understand my relationship to life, to God, and the part I'm to play in this world. That is an ongoing. That verse wasn't just given to me. It was given to you too. Ask, seek, knock. And something to really incorporate into our life on an ongoing basis. And so prayer is not about changing God. We have said that and we have taught that. It's not about changing God's mind. It is basically about changing us. And it is about creating an opening. Prayer is about creating an opening in which we are able to connect with this presence and power. We have a tendency to focus on externals because we live in an external world, and sometimes we're pulled away from the internal. Our challenges, we face limitations, sometimes in finances and relationally and physically, and so that we may be working on manifesting prosperity or healing our physical body, or finding the right person, or fixing the person we're with. We're praying on all these things. But spiritually, everything moves from center to circumference. Everything moves from within out. And so you have to understand that your life is to be lived from center to circumference, from within out. As opposed to starting out there and thinking it's going to change, we have to begin within. And what better place than with source energy, with the one intelligence that is throughout the universe, that knows who you are, and the role that you are to play, and what is your next greatest need in your growth, and that whole dynamic. You have the greatest counselor you could ever have, the greatest friend you could ever have. And it's simply never lose heart in that knowing. So life is about progressing, it is about expanding, it is about growing, creating, if you will. All of us have within us the seed of God, and a seed is never fulfilled until it breaks open and begins to be that which it is in its inherent nature. And so an acorn is meant to be a mighty oak. It's not meant to remain a nut. And that goes for us, So anyway, some of you are familiar. I love the writings of David Hawkins. And David Hawkins, some of you know some of his books. And I think the first one that we all came to know about, those who are familiar with his works, was Power versus Force. And I love that because it really talks about calibrating and measuring consciousness. And so he put numerical numbers on different attributes and qualities of energies and frequencies, vibrations that move through us as beings. And so he put numbers from 0 to 1,000, and he did this through kinesiology and what have you. But the main thing is he arrived at numbers, and there were those numbers which were under 200 were destructive energies, and those that were above 200 were constructive. And so he said and concluded that basically 85% of humanity is somewhere below 200. It's a sad thing. But you see, the energies below 200, he said, are things like guilt, shame, apathy, fear, grief. All of these and several others that he mentioned. Those things that take you above 200 are the energies of love, joy, peace, acceptance, willingness, these and others. And so again, there are those things that we enter into prayerfully that generate a frequency and a vibration that hold you into a higher level of expression. We all want to move higher, into higher vibrations. So far, I have not found that there is a machine anywhere that you can stick your finger in and get a measurement on your consciousness. How much you're loving, or how much you're actually in joy and peace and vibrating at a high number. We do have, those that you can stick your finger in and get your temperature and your pulse, but nothing on consciousness as of yet. But for today, we want to really address this movement of a deepening communion with the divine, and never underestimate the importance and the significance of it. God is spirit and you're a spiritual being. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The spirit is what lives within you. You start within and move out from there. And so, we all have different ideas about prayer and how often we should pray. There's a little boy, Jimmy, a 5-year-old. His preacher or minister was visiting their house, and he asked Jimmy, so did you say your prayers? Do you say your prayers each night, little fellow? And Jimmy says, yes, sir, I do. And he says, do you also say them in the morning? And little Jimmy says, no, sir, I ain't scared in the daytime. So we can be like that, only on an as-needed basis do we live our prayer life sometimes. In effective prayer, it helps to know where God is, all right? And to know that you are never separate from God, and that God dwells within us and is all around us as a presence as well. but you really connect with God within, in your heart, in your soul, in your being. It's a feeling. It's not just an intellectual experience, but it's a feeling of a presence that is there. And you develop that feeling by repetition, by engaging with it. Not necessarily saying the same thing over and over, although it doesn't matter, because you never want to judge your prayer. Whatever level you're currently on in prayer, just do it, and continue to grow and deepen in your prayer and prayer approach. And so, Paul said that we are each the temple of the living God, which says that God dwells within us, and it's to know that. And the God part of us has sometimes been referred to as the I am, okay? And that all comes, of course, from back in the Old Testament, where we have the story of Moses, and Moses is told that he is to lead the people out of a bondage in Egypt, and he asks, well, what should I tell them? Who sent me? And God, in this conversation, says, tell them I am has sent you, okay? And so what that means to me is, in other words, tell them that the God in you was sent to lead them to the God in themselves so that they might know freedom. You understand? Everything is a metaphor when you look at stories in the Bible that have a history and an ongoingness, and you're supposed to really metaphysically put yourself into the story. How is that story being told from a withinness? And so what that's saying is that the I am in me is going to free people to the I am in them. The God part of Moses was what was going to lead the people. And Jesus, used the term I am. He said, I am the bread of life. He said, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. He said in Revelation, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. He said, before Abraham was, I am, which is to say, I am, what I'm saying is I am in me is not unique only to me. It was in Abraham. It was before Abraham. It was before me. It's in you, the I am. No one else can say I am for you. And when you say I am, that God part of you, you are meant and intended to follow it with that which is above the true 100 level. I am love. I am peace. I am acceptance. I am strength. I am whole. I am free. These kinds of things. Let's say it now. Say after me. I am love. I am free. I am peace. I am joy. I am strength. I am prosperous. I am whole. I am love. How's it feel? Great. Yeah. That's the I am. That's the real you. That's the unchanging you. It's the in the moment now you. You see, you can wake up in the morning and you can check the time and you can ask, where am I? And you can say, well, I am here. You can go back to sleep, wake up a couple of hours later, ask yourself the same question, where am I? I am here. You can go on a business trip. You can go somewhere, other state, whatever. Wake up in the morning, ask yourself, where am I? I am here. Everywhere you go, you are I am. It can never be taken away from you. I am. When you lay down this body and you're emptied of perhaps all the different personalities and all the things that you have in your unconscious that are separating you, guess what? What's left is I am. You will always be an I am because you are an eternal being. It's the most sacred part of you. It's important to know that prayer, affirmative prayer, is an affirmation and an affirming of the truth of God that sets you free. The I am that says, I am love, I am peace, I am joy, I am all the qualities and attributes of the divine. And so communing with God, we must learn to create a kind of a pattern, an ongoingness, a deepening communication, a sense that we can communicate all the time. When I went to India, the many times I have gone and studied at the Oneness University, what they tell you over and over again is keep asking and keep talking. Talk to God. Make God your supreme friend. Your supreme friend. establish a bond with the divine as a presence like no other in this world. Go to that presence. Talk to that presence all through the day. We may say our prayers like the little boy for 15 minutes or less in the morning, 15 minutes or less in the evening. Let's say it's a half an hour per day. What's going on the other 23 and a half hours of our life each day? What they're saying is communicate all the time. Every thought, every word, every deed, every emotion, every act is a prayer and can be a prayer. That's where we're going. That's the journey. That's what we're awakening to, and that's what deepens us. And with that, you free up, and your fears begin to go away. Because the nature of that presence, the more you engage with it, the more its super divine intelligence takes over and moves through you. There was this idea about learning. There was a wonderful movie that I love. It was called Day of the Dolphin. It's an old movie, so I don't know how many of you remember. It had George C. Scott, who has passed on now. And George C. Scott was a scientist, and he had raised this dolphin from very young. It was a male dolphin, and he had named it Alpha. And so he is teaching the dolphin to talk. That was one of his goals. And so he was called by the dolphin Pa. And the dolphin learned its own name to be Fa, because he couldn't say Alpha, so he just said Fa. So Pa is the scientist, Fa, they're pretty similar, but can you get that? Okay, repeat after me. Nope. Okay, so he's trying to teach this dolphin to talk, meaning not just parroting back, like a parrot. I can teach you this and now you can say that back. He was trying to get to the place as a scientist where the dolphin could think for itself and actually carry on this conversation, being to being. And so that's kind of what the movie is about. And so he wasn't getting where he wanted to. And so what he did was he found a female dolphin and brought it into the same tank and pool with Fa, and the female's name was Bee. And so as he had suspected, they became really good friends. And they fell in love. And they would splash and dance and court and carry on in their bliss. And this went on for a few weeks, and it was just, they were really close, these two dolphins. And then one day, he opened this gate to an adjoining pool when Bee, the female, was nearby, and she just kind of swam in there. And before Fa knew what happened, she was in the other pool. Scientists slammed down this iron gate. And now they were separated. And Fa got so upset that he started circling around, swimming angrily and throwing his tail banging against this metal gate that had come down, that had separated him from Bee. And it continued, and for hours this went on. The dolphin was in fury over this sense of separation. And it finally came to a point where he was exhausted. And he comes up to the edge of the pool, and the scientist is right there sleeping in like a lawn chair at the edge of the pool, because he knew this would take a long time for Fa to get this out, this fury. And he woke him up with the words, the dolphin woke the scientist up with the words, Pa, Pa, Fa wants Bee. Fa wants Bee. And of course, he popped awake and he was in jubilation because he, as a scientist, had proven that this dolphin was able to get to the place where it could communicate at that kind of a level. And from there, the story goes on where the conversations and the communication even deepens and expands, because now they've learned that it can think and it can form more words and so forth. And he did let the girlfriend back in the pool. But I like the story. I like the story because we can see ourselves in it. We may slam and bam and bang, swim in circles in frustration, frustrated away what's happening in the world, or the way the world is treating us, or what is not happening, that our sense of separation from our good, whatever. And we have to discover that a major ingredient to moving the gate or the wall away and out of our way is willingness to move into higher levels of communication. Communication is creation. And the more you create and communicate with the divine, the more you're creating a life that is transformative in nature. And the interesting thing was that the motivating factor in this story, the motivating ingredient to communicating more deeply was love. Love brought that dolphin around to a willingness to communicate that. And of course, we've been told by Jesus the most important commandment for all of us is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. How do you do that? But entering into relationship with it, okay? Not in the sense that it's separate, but it's always there, it's always with you, always a part. The Hawaiians said about the Christian missionaries that when they prayed, they didn't have breath in their prayers because they would just come and say a few sentences and say amen. But they, in their tradition, would really spend time before they prayed deepening, and after going to the altar, they would come out from their prayers and just deepen and give breath to their prayers. And so they call the Christians howlies, meaning without breath, those who fail to breathe life into their prayers. And so we are asked to do that as well. There's so much about prayer that we could go on and on about, but the important thing is to realize that affirmative prayer declares the truth that God's good is already yours, okay? Our prayers cannot influence God to be more God-like, all right? And so prayers are not necessarily to be about begging or flattery or contractual, I'll do this if you do that. It is not about manipulating a God, and we wouldn't want a God we could manipulate. The purpose of prayer is to raise yourself to the level of consciousness where you are aware that God is good and that good already exists. That you can't pray for God to give you your good because God is the good. God is peace, God is joy, God is love, and you have to step into that vibration, and prayer is the way. So it's not so much praying to get as praying or praying to, as a deepening prayer is to pray from. And that's what the I am is about, is to pray from I am at one with peace, from I am at one with the source of love, from I am at one with the one strength, the one power in the universe. I am one with the life that is eternal and never ends. I am. I am. God bless you all.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. Unity is inclusive, welcoming people of all walks of life in dignity and love. We believe that love, strength, and goodness dwells within you. May we all live in unity with God, humanity, and all of God's creation. And remember, as Reverend Caesar says, life is meant to be good.